Hello and welcome to Code Skwela. In this session, we will be building a loan amortization calculator application with Blazor. This will not be a long exhaustive tutorial, but instead, we will discuss how the application was built. First of all, what is a loan amortization? A quick Google search will tell you that it's a way of paying for something that splits your payment obligations into multiple payment periods. This is commonly applied to things like purchasing a car or a house. Before we move on, I have included a link to the GitHub repository of the project for your reference. I have also created an Excel file that will serve as a basis for our UI. And so what you can see right now is this will be the final output of our application. So with this one, you can input the amount and then the interest rate and the number of years, and then it will calculate your payment obligations uh, on a number of terms, right, or periods. Okay, so here is our Excel. This will serve as our template, okay, for us to understand how things work with loan amortizations. All right, so here I've created a basic Excel template or file that would show us how the different parts of a loan amortization works. Okay, so initially it would start with these three parameters. We have this loan amount, interest, and number of years. And then by default, it would generate 12 periods or 12 number of payments by default, since that is based on an annual uh, term. Okay, so in a year we have 12 months. Okay, so payment is split into 12 months. Okay, and so yeah, and so for your reference, yeah, I have just mentioned a while ago that if you Google loan amortization, you will be directed to so many resources regarding what is a loan amortization. One example that I find quite helpful is this one from Investopedia. So here it tells you and explains to you what an amortization schedule is, and then the formulas that are necessary for you to compute, okay, each of the, I mean, the terms of your amortization. Okay, so here you can find a formula here that I will be using or I have used on the application. Okay, so including this one. So yeah, you can read the entire uh, thing here. Okay, maybe I'll just add also this one on the description for this session. Okay, right. So next up is we will be looking into the actual project. Okay, so uh, here since we will be building it using Blazor, so we will be dealing with a Blazor server app. Okay, so basically we start, or you start with a uh, Blazor server project template, and then from there on you can uh, follow along the code that I have, or the code that I have used for this one. Okay, so I have prior to working with this, I have removed the default templates or files that have been generated from the default template. Okay, so that we end up with a very minimal set of files needed, because we don't need those other things that have been generated. Okay, and so first off, we started with a definition of a class that that will contain the logic of our uh, application. Okay, so here, if you notice, in our solution explorer, I have added several folders here. So let's focus here in this folder, core, and then this loan amortization schedule calculator. So it's quite a long class name, but anyways, that it would serve us easier for us to understand and read the purpose of the class itself. Okay, and so with this approach, prior to building out the rest of the logic for our calculate method, I have uh, followed the TDD approach, or the test-driven development approach, and that means that uh, prior to building out the actual logic of our uh, method, in this case our calculate method that would calculate the loan amortization schedule, we will be uh, doing our test first, okay, since that is the essence of TDD. So if you notice on our Solution Explorer, I have also added a unit test project. So with this unit test, we will be doing several tests for the different functions and the different validations that would be needed for this method. So now we will examine the tests that we have added. Okay, so we have several of these tests. And so first off here is, yeah, if you can, I mean, hopefully you can easily determine what is the purpose of each of these tests, okay, by looking at this method names. So we are using XUnit for this one as our unit testing framework. And so we have here, first one is a calculate annual interest rate should return correct monthly interest rate. That is because for us to actually calculate the uh, amortization, we would need an interest rate that is split between the 12 months, okay, or the number, yes, uh, with the 12 months. So that is one part of that. And then here also, this is the for calculating the years to pay that should return the number of payments, okay. So if you have, for by default, it an amortization would usually, like common would be 1 year, that would be 12 payments since 12 months. Then you just, yeah, do for example, if you have 2 years, then you have 24, then 3 years, 36, so on and so forth, okay. You just multiply the number of years by the number of months, okay. So yeah, that is one. And then here we have also the parameters for I mean, for testing the correct return total monthly payment. Now for the formula of that, again, we can refer to this web page. It has this formula, this one, the total monthly payment. That would be the main component in calculating each of the period, okay, the values that you would uh, be paying for each of the period that you will be paying for the schedule. All right, and so another one is this one. So this one is more of like the uh, actual schedule that has been generated. So we have this expected value of our generated table, and then yeah, and then we compare that against to our actual return value of schedules from our calculator, okay. Right, so we simplified this one. So you might have noticed that, for example, when comparing the amortization schedule, we just have to round it out into whole numbers, okay, so much easier. But I guess I'm not an expert in finance and with numbers, with dealing with money, so I think the minimal would be 2 decimal places, but here we just set it as whole numbers, okay. It's much easier for us to see the values on the output, okay. Anyways, so here we have this part. This part is where we do uh, the validations prior to uh, actually doing the calculation. So in our calculate method, we have these parameters, right? So we did some unit test against this to verify that we are dealing with correct values, okay. So this would be the validation section prior to actually doing the calculations here, right? And so, yeah, if you can observe that, yeah, doing assert that throws, and then you run the act here, and then if something goes wrong here or an exception, then it would be uh, filtered, and then yeah, if expected exceptions for this method calculate. Okay, so yeah, that is pretty much the meat of this. So I've split this into several sections. Yeah, initially calculating the parameters that would be needed for generating the schedules, and this uh, also this formula for the get total payment is also again based on this one. Then the rest is, yeah, this one is also used in generating the schedules. Now this would be the actual meat of the schedule. This one inside this method get schedule. Okay, so again, please bear with me as I'm not an expert on the actual thing when it comes to finances like this. But yeah, these formulas has already been taken out of this web page. So the idea is, yeah, the same. Basically, if you search anywhere else in Google, you'd still end up with these formulas. Okay, they are pretty like general or common, right? Next is, after we have completed our uh, core logic for our calculations via TDD based on this unit test. Anyways, before we move on, you might be wondering where we can see the test. We are currently running. Let's just stop this first. And then, yeah, for TDD, you will be most commonly be, or I mean, usually be working with the Test Explorer. So with the Test Explorer, it allows you to see each of the individual tests that you are trying to do. Okay, then you can also execute individually the test. All right, so that is one part. Next up is, after they have done the logic for our calculator, next is we do the UI. Okay, so we have here our index page, which where we have placed our UI uh, UI code. Okay, so following this Excel format, this one, we have added forms, input forms for capturing the loan amount, the annual interest rate, and then the number of years. Okay, and we have also added here, this would be a read-only one, although it's an input. It would display the total number of payments based on the number of years. Okay, and then the actual calculate button that will execute our calculation. Okay, and so here in this part, we have this table. So once the calculation has been done, it will return data for the schedule, and then we have outputted it here as a table, okay, in this format. So everything is basically just an HTML table. Then we have also formatted it into a currency for each of the values, okay, except the period. Next up is the actual method for the calculate uh, button. So here we have already, since we have already our calculator class that we have built up using TDD. Next is we can use that one to do the actual calculation. And then, yeah, you might have noticed that although the loan calculator can return a list of amortization schedule, and still we've filtered it into a different amortization schedule model. That is because uh, if you are trying to follow a clean architecture style of software architecture, I guess, please forgive me if, or correct me if I'm wrong. So we have here models. Okay, so this model, uh, we have the, so for this one we have the core would be the actual application code, or I mean the actual logic, and then also part of that is this amortization schedule. So ideally we would still split this one, put this class into its separate namespace. Ideally if you are following the clean architecture, you have the core and then this would be your domain class, okay, or like an entity of some sort. And then here, the models here would refer to the view model, which means the class that would, I mean the model that would be followed by this UI. Okay, this would be mapped to a UI. So that's why mostly, if you've come across MVC, the model here is would be like a view model equivalent. Okay, and so yeah, so you have two classes here: the loan, which is the general model for our UI, including the data for our amortization schedule, and then the amortization class. So there's just nothing like, they are just plain classes, okay, or POCOs. Okay. So now, after we have done the calculation, we have transformed it into our view model via this for loop, for each loop, so that we can do any other type of processing. Okay, and then we assign it to our loan object, the amortization property of our loan object, and then yeah, that's it. This is much the core of this uh, application. Simple. Okay, so if we run this, we should hopefully see the output. Yeah, we initially saw it when at the start of this session, and yep, and so we have now our final application wherein you can input. So if you just click calculate, we have validations already that have been set up as part of the logic for the calculation. So yeah, if you hit the calculate button, then yeah, it would output errors on the different fields that are required. For example, you enter 100,000 and then click calculate again, then you have a different error again. For this one is annual interest rate, it's set 6. Let's calculate, then it would still not allow you to calculate, and then set 1 and then calculate, and then it would generate our schedule. Okay, so basically that's how this application works. It's simple, so you can just refer to the repository and take a look at the code that I have used. There might be some things in there that aren't perfect, or you maybe we could do better, but yeah, this one would be as simple as following the information that we got from here. Okay, we don't need to do any other guessing since the formulas are already there. Okay, and then we also initially tried it here just to make sure that yeah, the formulas work, and yeah, and then we ended up with this application. So you can try different values for here, let's calculate and see that it would still work. Yeah, so let's say add a million, calculate, yeah, and let's say let's max it out at 30. Okay, that's quite a long list since you will be having 360 terms, payment terms. Okay, this one would, yeah, it's based in finance. This, I guess, this would be negative, but eventually, I mean, simply it's just zero. Okay, so yeah, I think there's not much to discuss about this application, but let me know in the comment section if you have any questions or some clarifications, or you have some ideas that uh, could improve the code and the application. Yeah, let me know. So thank you everyone for uh, staying with me for this session, and hope to see you again in our future sessions. Thank you and have a great day, everyone.